on identity, culture, and belonging. I was born in Colombia and raised in Panama, and my multicultural upbringing inspired this body of work. As we can see here, they're elaborate still lifes, which I created in my home or my family's home, that tell stories about migration, adaptation, through the use of objects that represent certain cultural heritages of mine, such as Jewish objects, Panamanian objects, textiles that we passed down from my family, and flowers that hold a significant meaning to my family, which represent the feminine and the familial connection. So today, I'm really excited to announce a panel called Collectors Roundtable with these fabulous group of women. And this is a series of events that we have during the exhibition that will be up until May. So I highly encourage you guys to follow and keep in touch with the programming. And without further ado, I'll pass it over to Nuria so we can get started with the conversation. Hope you guys enjoy.
Hello. Thank you, Ryan. Well, we're happy to be here. We're happy to be here. I know the three of you throughout my landing in Miami. I'm so happy that we're doing this. So these women are beyond special. Like anyone that has spent 2 minutes with them know that they are the foundation of a new era of art in Miami, and I do appreciate all of you so much, so much. Like, thank you. I meant so much, and I'm just so thankful to be part of whatever you guys do. Really. I'm gonna let yourself introduce yourselves, and then we're gonna jump into the questions. We'll be questioning about art collecting. The three of you have a very different approach, are doing different things. So, Kathryn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm on the hot seat. Is this working?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
So first off, I do want to thank Dahlia. Where did you go? You disappeared too. So I just want to say something, because all of this programming, including the talk tonight and what the talks that have happened before and what's happening next with AI, is all Dahlia's doing. And I think it's important to mention that, because artists, need to work these days to kind of activate their spaces, bring new people in, cultivate different conversations, and I think you've done an incredible job doing that. So I really do, while you talk for all of 2 seconds about your work and what we're seeing here today, I want to encourage everybody to take a moment after our talk to really understand the work that we're embraced by today. So Dahlia, thank you for bringing us together. My name is Kathryn Mikesell. I adore Nuria as well as Donnalynn, as well as Mindy. I am honored to start this off because I can say that I'm in company with badass women and many more in the audience, I should say, as well. I think I know most of the women here, and they're all pretty incredible. So take time to get to know one another. I along with my husband Dan, have been collecting for over 27 years. It's Dan who actually ignited the passion in me for art. I knew nothing about art prior to my husband, which always seems to astonish people, but a lot of people don't grow up with art in this family. So it's thanks to Dan for bringing me into the arts. And the thing that I love about all of us on the panel, and including you, Nuria, is that we're all extraordinarily passionate, but we're realizing our passion and bringing people into our passion in very different ways within the arts. But we are all about bringing more people in, breaking down the barriers to an elitist art world, and being just inclusive, loving, nurturing, and helping to educate people along the way. So I'm very proud to be on this panel. And
Thank you. Talia, thank you so much for having us today. And thank you, ladies. We always have a very, very good time. And whenever we get together, the conversation just flows, because I think that there's so much of the same interest, right? And as you mentioned, we do it on different levels. So with me, I had originally started in the art market, selling art on the secondary market. And that sort of flowed into learning about collections and learning about people. But then I started meeting artists, and I got very involved with them. And to me, every canvas has a heartbeat. Every piece of art has a soul in it. And to me, it sort of just bridged this connection into my magazine. It's called Portrait Magazine. And for me, it's about showing these artists and exposing them to something bigger than they could have done themselves. And it's been so rewarding watching people grow. Like I've been, looking at this is so fitting. It's like we sort of, I think everyone on this panel plants seeds, right? And so do the artists. I always say artists are like gardeners. They have the ability to plant something and just continue to grow and grow. And it's an honor for me personally to help people be recognized and appreciated for what they do. And if I can assist that way, I feel like it's just for me such a pleasure. And I just want to thank you all for being here. And I'm looking forward to talking to you. I hope you all have questions in the end, or if you don't, think now. But I'd like to thank Victor for being here. Victor's my love, who's such a big part of our collecting. And I think one thing that we both have in common is we have such a connection to the artists that are in our collection that it just sort of transcends into the rest of our lives. And thank you for being on this journey with me. I love you so much. And he has such a good eye, Victor can call it so well a lot of the time, and I think he just has a really good intuition for feeling somebody's passion. Because when you look at something, you look at this work on the wall, you feel that. You feel her energy in every single photograph, and that's what's so beautiful. So thank you again. Over to you.
I do want to say that I appreciate that because I still hide when I buy something from Javi. If you don't know, Javi is my partner. So pieces appear in my house, like here and there, just hanging. He's like, "What's that?" And I was like,
We have a rule. It's like we call it double green. Like both of us have to agree.
I know. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But
It works.
sometimes you need to hide your art. Mindy?
Wow, starting with hide your art. I'm Mindy Solomon, and I have a gallery called Mindy Solomon Gallery, which comes in handy in case I forget who I am. So I guess I started collecting, we had this conversation the other day, but in 1986, when I first got married, and I was taking a pottery class, and I was a failed potter, a miserable potter. And it was inexpensive, and I appreciated the skill that went into it, so that was where the process began. I too have hid art in plain sight. I raised 4 children around art, and now I'm #gallery grandma, except that none of my 4 grandkids can come into my house. It's a danger zone. But I definitely have a passion for it. I was an art weirdo as a kid, always drawing, making up books and stories. And I went to college. I thought I wanted to be an anthropologist. And then I realized that you can't sit with chimpanzees in the jungle all the time. You actually have to learn statistics and boring things. So I went back to art. And this is how I manifested it now at this point as a collector and a gallerist. So I'm excited to talk further.
I didn't know that side of it because I wanted to be a marine biologist before I learned that I just wasn't swimming in the ocean with sharks all the time. I had to be in the laboratory.
I did get to go to the chimp lab at UPenn and actually interface with a chimp and their little tiny hands, and it was really nice. But that was as far as I got. So, but I swam.
I like the background in biology. Seems consistent. I've seen, let's dive into the topic of collecting. Your house, the first time that I went to your house, I crashed a party with one of your artists, and I was like, oh my god, what is this? This is awesome. The pizza party during our bustle. which I wrote about it at our circuits. Like you should definitely crash the Fountainhead party. It's a great place. I'm going to your house soon.
Oh, you're
Donnalynn.
gonna love it equally.
But I haven't seen your collection, but I've seen you buying. It's fun. It's fun to see collectors buying. And when I got here to work for Ivan Gallery, we had the first ever progressive art brunch meeting at your gallery because Mindy is like the mom of the gallery. And I saw everything that you had, and I've been at the back room several times, and I had the opportunity to sit down with you and just see your fair process. That has been amazing. So I've seen you collecting somehow, but I would like you to share. It's a very personal thing, to share your collecting process with the audience. I feel that collecting is something that people are very interested in doing, but sometimes it's hard. It's like it's a budget thing, it's an art thing. You want to be super I feel like a lot of people try to be super smart about it, like intellectual, but sometimes you need just to go with it and with your artist. How do you collect? What drives your collecting? You're big in ceramics.
Yes, I mean, again, that comes from being a failed potter. I mean, if tennis was a collection, I would have had a collection of that because I'm a horrible tennis player. But I'm really bad at bowling too. So. Anyway, I think for me, it was this kind of obsession with material. I mean, I love to go into stores and fond little fabrics, when no one's looking, just kind of run my hand through things and, touch everything. So being surrounded with texture and color was of interest to me. And when you get to a certain point, as I know you two can attest to, you have so many things, so many objects that, like this space right now, the object becomes the thing. In other words, everything that you add to this collection is part of this greater whole. It's like putting puzzle pieces in place. And, I've had clients call me on the phone and say, I don't know, it just doesn't feel right. I said, because it needs a friend. Things are lonely by themselves. I mean, some things can hold space beautifully, but other things are so much happier when they have something to talk to. And I think that as you continue to, as I have, respond intuitively to what speaks to you, whether it's a sense of humor, which has been frequently a motivator for me, I love humor, or I don't know, just maybe I have this head by Dan McCarthy, and I remember my mom and brother came to the house and I said to them, what does this remind you of? They're not art collectors. And my brother said, puppy dog. His toy that he had when he was a toddler, my mother sewed on a stocking for a mouth and 2 buttons for an eye and a nose, and I saw this Dan McCarthy hat, and I said, there's puppy dog, I have to have it. So it was never for me about whether this was an important artist or someone I should have. It was about what I connected to that gave me comfort in my space. And as I continue to collect things, and I still do, even though I don't really know where to put them, I am thinking a little bit more strategically about legacy. And we talked about that.
I really want to follow up on that.
Because even though I have, thankfully this progeny, it's a tremendous responsibility to live with hundreds of objects. Your life becomes, in a way, controlled by objects.
How do you feel about stewarding? Like, do we own the pieces, or we're just taking care of them while they're with us?
Well, that's an interesting point. And I do think stewardship is a very important thing. And I feel like I am the steward of these objects, and I am very much thinking about where they will go. And I was telling my late husband, was like, you're not donating it. And I said, okay. But think I will be donating things because I like the idea of things having a legacy. There's something very exciting to me about thinking that someday my grandchild can walk into a museum and see his or her family name on the wall. That, you know, there was this care and this love. So yes, stewardship is really important. So there is a little bit of a strategy now that I never really thought about in the past about the things that I'm adding on.
And I really love that we're talking about this because in Miami, you know, we are building these big organizations, and I think it's important to share with the audience how those are built. What about you girls? Tell us about your collections.
I feel like I forgot to, I'm very terrible promoter sometimes, that I co-founded with my husband Dan Fountainhead Residency. So if you haven't been, please come. I don't think I said that in the beginning.
I was gonna get to that. Like,
Okay.
so we're fine.
Okay, sorry. But it's interesting because as you're talking about legacy and what happens with the objects, Dan and I are just finishing our estate plan. We're thinking a lot about that because for us, nothing was ever purchased as an investment or thinking at all about value or monetary value. It was always thinking about value to our lives, to our family, to our health, to the way we started our day. Like that was our value. Excuse me, it wasn't all about financial. And our children love our works, but they're not going to likely be able to absorb everything that we have. I mean, I know that you already fill your kids' homes, and we'll soon, we'll someday fill your grandkids' homes. We'll do the same, but over the last 27 years, Dan and I have been loaning art. As soon as we take it down, we find a friend to bring it into their homes. So we have artwork I think we worked at 32 friends' homes. Because from our perspective, like art is meant to be lived with. It's not meant to be stored. It's not meant to be just held onto. It's meant to be shared. And I think that's something that's very important, to us. And so when we talk about what happens to all of these things when we pass, which will be at the age of like 200, we think about, we would both like them to go into community centers or libraries or somewhere that doesn't actually have an art collection where people wouldn't normally experience art, so they have the opportunity to experience art. But that also comes with, making sure that there are funds available to take care of the art,
Yes.
right? Because you can't just give art to someone and not take care of it, because it's very important to the artist that art retains its original look and feel and energy, right? So you have to maintain that. So it's also not that easy to say, we just want to, loan it to community centers. And so it's very, very layered. But going back to the original question of how we collect, you mentioned the 2 green lights. We don't have that same saying, but basically, Dan and I have to agree on everything. And sometimes one person is pulling the other one more, but ultimately, we have to live with this work, and so I think so we have to both like it. Doesn't mean we haven't snuck things in or put things on hold without an option, over time, in the past. But for the most part, we agree, and I agree with Mindy that it's really for us, and kind of was from very early on because we started collecting Miami-based artists. And really getting to know the artists locally, which I think is of the utmost importance, that you support the artists that are here in your community, because you have a relationship with them, and you can invite them over, you can have them for dinner, and you can show their incredible work on the wall and introduce them to your friends. So I think supporting local is so important, and from there we continue to expand, but never giving up. Supporting of local artists, because again, very important. And really, but like you, it was just like something spoke to us in the work. I think we did always ask to see other pieces from what we saw, what from what attracted us to the work, because I do think it's important to get a sense for an artist's kind of overall body of work. But, you know, really it was just, you know, something just drew us in and held us there. And sometimes you have to walk away from it to see if it was just like a flash or it stuck with you, and then sometimes works pop up in your head months or years later that you're like, I wonder if that, you know, like, because things like stick with you. Sometimes they just gnaw at you. Like, don't forget about that. But you can't figure out why, right?
Yeah.
And then you go back.
I'm thinking about that piece, or you know,
That's
absolutely.
right. Thanks for going. Yeah. Take it from here. Seriously.
No, it happens. You know, like I said, I really think that there's so much energy in every piece of art you see, and there's a person behind it. And like I mentioned earlier, like our collection is such a personal thing. If you come over to my house, Victor, or I will show you around, and we can tell you a story about every single artist in the house. You know, and to me, that's irreplaceable. It's irreplaceable.
I think it's true of all of us, right? And we all have stories. You can't just walk in our house and not get a story. That's utterly impossible.
Yeah. And so a lot of the people I've written about in the magazine, right?
Drinks one?
I worked right. Oh yeah, I'll tell you about that later. So for us, it's a deeply personal thing. Don't get me wrong. If something went to $1 million tomorrow, we're not going to be sad. You know, it's not a bad thing either. But for us, we live with our art, and we love to show people and share, and we can do that and feel good about it. And we live with a lot of it. We don't really store a lot of our art. We have bought art as investments in the past. Sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. Right? So it kind of brings you back to living what you love.
It's funny. You have a piece that I was gonna buy from a friend of mine, and I asked her like, who bought it? She's like, okay. And I'm like, oh, I'm okay with that. At least I know who is taking care of it. But it's, I mean, I think your collecting is beautiful. It's a very beautiful practice. Do you remember what was the first thing that you collected? Like the first artwork that you considered like, oh, I am buying art? Because I feel like it's not clear. Like sometimes we're just going around like wanting something or liking it. But do you remember what was your first piece? Can you share it with us?
Yes. So the first piece that we bought together was on our honeymoon in 1986, and we were driving on. Well, my husband was going into his second year of. Wait, we got married. He was. Give me a second here. He was in medical school. Yeah. So we didn't have much money at all. And we were on a motor cruise up to Prince Edward's Island. So we stopped in St. John's, New Brunswick. And I, by the way, got married at 22, which is weird because I'm only 29. It's cool though. So, you know, we were really young and we really didn't have much money. And we stopped in St. John's, New Brunswick, and we bought this little sake jar, this little raccoon sake jar at the pottery there. And I think it was like $75. So that was the first piece. And it will always be like very important to me.
Do you have it like in a special place in your home?
I do. Well, I have it amongst many other friends, but I know exactly where it is.
How many friends do you have?
A lot of friends. I mean, you know, when we moved down to Miami, I had a house that was twice as large, and I shoved pretty much. I mean, I do have storage, and I've kind of forgotten exactly what's in that storage, and I need to research that.
And catalog it.
Yeah. But I went from a house that was twice as big and shoved everything in, and I remember my youngest daughter came to visit me. She hadn't seen the new house, and she opened the door and she said, oh my God, you've got a problem. I go, why? There's too much stuff in here? You know, so I don't know, hundreds of friends.
That's good. Yeah, good stewardship.
All sort of sitting together.
How did you guys? Well, you are our advisor. You meet, I'm gonna say, hundreds of artists a year, probably. You have your own gallery. Like between the people you know, close unsolicited portfolios, and like you see a lot. How do you guys collect? Like, you buy from the artists. I want to say that different countries have different practices. In Mexico, it's very common that you buy directly from the artists. Here in the US, it's more common to go through the gallery if they have one. It's just like correct, etiquette. There's an etiquette on how you collect. And I think that we should elaborate a little bit both on how you collect and the etiquette of collecting.
I think it's important when you're collecting. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I do artists in their spaces, and I get to see them and I can buy from them directly. But I also think it's super important to support the galleries that are in your neighborhood. And, we try to kind of spread the love amongst, I think, all the galleries here. We talk to the owners on a weekly basis, I would even say, a lot of them. And for us to be able to help everybody in all facets, it's sort of equal opportunity, and I think it's fair. It's fair, everyone.
And I would bet on that you've also bought from Fountainhead, from the artists and residents. But I agree 100%. And Mindy, doesn't get the same opportunity to say this because she is a gallery, but at the end of the day, it really is important to support the entire ecosystem because it takes us all. And that goes for whether it's an independent curator that's having a show somewhere. Like if you learn about the artist's work through someone, whether it's a residency, a gallery, an art advisor, an independent curator, it's really important to support those people because it clearly, like, no artist survives on their own, no gallery survives on their own, no art advisor survives on their own. It's all about supporting one another, and I think that's really important.
I think sometimes when you purchase a piece, it could be the difference between an artist paying their rent that month. That's just the reality of it. So being able to sort of help with that is a good feeling.
I agree with all of you, everything. I think that when you are buying art, like there's this question of what are you investing on? Like you're investing in your community.
And a human being.
First and foremost, right? Like you
Multiple
are
human beings. If galleries are involved, and curators are involved.
Yeah.
And money.
It's important.
All of it.
And I'm gonna say like communication and dialogue, and there's like so many other layers that we don't discuss because we're so used to the where are you gonna buy and how are you gonna resell it, and I think that there's more depth. Like there's so much more depth to what all of you do, and it's important to share it. I mean, what do you evaluate when you buy an art? Besides, wall space is pretty important. Or how much storage is left? Do you need a new one? But what do you evaluate? Like pricing point is important. We all have a budget. That's important. Then you're supporting someone, so you want to support everything count. Like every dollar counts. But what else? Like you feel it's very much you when you buy.
But I was gonna say, I do think it's important to know your budget because you don't want to look at something on your wall and regret what you have, right? I mean, know your budget, but also don't buy something that's maybe less of a piece because it fits your budget. Like I would suggest that you wait for the right piece, something that really speaks to you, to spend that money than to buy something that you're just like, oh, I really wanted that piece, but okay, I'll get this piece. No, please don't do that. But know your budget because you want this to be something that's a rewarding experience all the way around. And the truth of the matter is, there is artwork available at every price point.
You know that after trying to buy something from your gallery, that's when I started hiding my purchases. I couldn't go back to that sculpture because Patty had seen it already. And but I was like, okay, I shall not discuss. What about you girls? What was your first piece that you remembered like app collecting?
I was in New York and Victor was here and I purchased, at the time the artist name was Leon Lowenthal and he was I think 21 at the time and it was his third New York show. He was one of those prodigies that started very young. He was beautiful. And I remember I spent $50,000 on a piece. I had never spent that much money on a piece of art and I said to myself, "Ooh, I think you just came up a notch," but it was, but to this day, I love that painting. My home, it's so many
When you spent the $50,000, like, did you have any, like, in that moment, did you feel a little bit of an anxiety or kind of a, a rush?
No, I'm gonna tell you what I felt. It was in a home in New York, and I came down the stairs, and it was at the bottom of the stairs, and I saw the piece, and I went, "It's mine." And I looked at the man who had the show, and I went, "That's my piece, I want that piece." And he's like, "Okay, you can have it," and it just felt so good at the time, and I never regretted getting the work. I think it's just so beautiful, perfect for, so no, I didn't really regret it.
Once we hear Adrian's response, I want to talk about the anticipation of receiving your artwork. Like, I think that's something that we need to discuss from the selling and the buying point.
Well, ours was a Miami-based artist who unfortunately has since passed away, Robert Flynn, and he was working at the Benny South Florida Art Center, which doesn't exist anymore, but the organization goes on as Oolite Arts. But, I was scared. I said it. Which Nuria is now the director of development. But it was an organization that we actually were on the board of for a while. But this was well before we were on the board, and we fell in love with Robert. We loved his work. We loved his painting style. We loved his hand. But what we were seeing just wasn't anything that really grabbed us. But he was one of those artists that had in the back had rolled up canvases, in the back of his studio. And we're like, can we check out some of those rolled up canvases? And he's like, no, that's old work. And he was one of those artists that like whenever they finished work, it wasn't good anymore. Like the only thing that was important was what he was working on now. But no, we'd really like to look at those rolled up canvases. And we found this just incredible piece that was up in our homes for, I don't know, probably at least 15 years, something like that, for a very long time. It's now with a friend of ours. But I think about that piece all the time. I love that piece. Like, it's a great work of art.
We have one that Victor and I bought. The first piece we bought together, we don't always agree. Very on art, and we walked into a gallery here in Miami, and we saw the art on the wall, and we both went, that's it, that we bought it. That was the first piece that we bought together, that we both agreed on immediately, so that's also a really, really important work in art.
I want to ask this. Do you feel, because you've all collected with your partners, do you see, there's something about relationship building? Like, how do you know just what I want first or work together? Someone acting like Mexico, not this year, but last year. And you know, the person that played great, but also, I think him well. He likes painting. And I knew immediately that he was gonna like it. And I saw his face, and I was like, yes, okay, let's buy it. There's something bonding about it.
If we were in the Keys, and we were just in one of those little trivia shops, and we bought this little painting, I think it's this big, and it was done by a local artist, and just this little tiny thing, and I will tell you that it's one of the most sentimental pieces. I mean, it couldn't have cost $20, but it is one of the most important
Dan and I, so much of our, lives revolve around Fountainhead and arts and everything that we try to make space to together to just go out and see art on our own, which is not as easy as you would think. But it absolutely is, because one of I think the values of art in general is the conversations that it brings up, what it causes you to think about, how it stops you in your tracks, and experiencing that with someone that you love, it's priceless. So it's definitely part of the experience.
The first piece that I bought in payments. I still buy in payments, by the way.
Nothing wrong with it.
We heard that recently, and we were like, what?
We've
No,
never I also can't have debt, so I like it.
Yeah, it was-
I mean,
I like it when the artists get paid. That's the only thing, for me, I like to get paid.
the first piece that I bought in payments from Omar Bartet. That is an artist that did Fountainhead residency, and that's how I learned about Fountainhead. So it's just interesting that everyone finds a way.
Yeah,
When there's a will, there's a way.
Or relatives.
Or relatives.
I mean, we used to walk around the house going, is this paid for yes, is this paid for no? I mean, I just kind of went crazy and was just buying, and all these galleries were being very accommodating with payment plans, and we still offer payment plans.
I wanted to bring that up because even though there's services and everything, and I feel that talking with your gallery, get to know your galleries. I think that's my point. Get to know your galleries, get to know your artists, crack a conversation with the owners, with the residences that because a lot of residences offer collecting plan. Ask. Like, I feel like we were so shy. I remember I was so shy about going into a gallery and asking for anything. It seemed like it sounds stupid or like probably not gonna be my boyfriend, which it probably wasn't. But it's better than not knowing.
You don't ask, you know the answer.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, it's interesting how challenge makes people humble. I love it. Because there's a lot of games that, and I have nothing but, I have a lot of respect for colleagues in my field. But I do know that people will play shell games sometimes to create a perception of success or limited accessibility. And I think that what has happened recently, and this is not a digression on business, but I think what's happened recently is you're going to find if there's something you want. I mean, I remember having clients saying, I really want this painting, and they told me I can't get it, and blah, blah, blah. I said, if you really want it in 2 years, I guarantee you're going to get it. Just hang back. And it's true. I think that nowadays, if people want works, they're going to have a lot easier time to access them, and they're going to have a much easier time of not necessarily negotiating big discounts, but definitely negotiating a payment plan.
It's a great time to start collecting.
Yeah, there's a lot more material out there to be had.
But I do think it's important to talk about discounts too, because what I also don't like to see is when people try to, discount
Lowball.
to lowball, because I just don't think it's right. I mean, it's an artist who's invested a lifetime. It's hopefully a gallery that supported them and will support them in the long term. So I don't believe in lowballing.
I think artists also are very nervous about how to price their own art.
Yeah.
And sometimes they undermine their talent, right? Because they're afraid, there's a fear of not being accepted or not being, discovered or, getting into the right collections. And you have to kind of get over that if you really want to, but once again, it comes down to the group effort on everybody's part with that appreciation.
I also think it's important to say that if don't buy art because it's a great deal. Like, if you don't like the work, it's not a great deal. I'm sorry, art doesn't go on sale, okay? It's like you have to love the work that you're getting, get the best price you can, but if somebody calls you and says it's a great time to buy, I can get this great deal for you, run. If you don't, I mean, unless you love the work and you've been waiting for this moment all, for years. But if this is not work that you love, run. It's not a good deal.
I think that collecting is like dating. Like dating. Like, yeah, you could date that one, but you really, really want the other one. So, I mean, just, something.
Don't settle.
Don't settle. Something to think about. I promise I'm not, like, I'm doing this because I'm looking at my phone for the time, but also I have mom brain still, so I need to see my notes. I want to piggyback on the artists, how artists price their work. Like the three of you have very valuable input, and there's a lot of artists here, and I don't have that in my notes. But I think it would be very useful for all of us to get your input on that. What would you tell artists regarding the pricing topic?
Well, I mean, that's definitely something that I am called to do frequently with artists. And, I think the best way that I define it is establishing a baseline. And I also believe strongly, I'm very conservative in my approach to pricing art. And I feel like, especially when I'm working with an emerging artist, is that I want to look at the career as a long career. And I actually had a conversation with someone today where we were pricing art for an art fair. And I said, when I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this work in front of me, I want you and I to look at this and say, in 5 years we can put that as $20,000, and it's going to make sense to put it at $20,000 in 5 years, after you've had a lot of shows, after you've maybe had some institutional acquisitions. But what happens is, or what happened, because there's a cautionary tale about what happened between, I think, 2019 and 2022. I never saw anything like it. Things were just selling like crazy. And I would try to caution the artists because, if you're with long enough, you see that things go up and they go down across the board. But other people whispered in their ear and said, I can sell this now, so let's sell it for more. But what happens is, if you go up too high too quickly, you can really sabotage your career because someone can take that, look at your work, which is now at 20 or 30,000, and let's say you're 28 years old, and look at another young person who's got great work that's priced at $8,500. And so it's really important to be very deliberate and very patient with how you proceed in pricing, and you can always go up, but you can't go down.
I think also at certain price points you get to the point where you're looking at mid-career artists that have works that you can find in that same price point. And I think the key is, and I've always appreciated this about you, Mindy, I was literally just having this conversation with an artist who is concerned that their gallery raised their prices too quickly. Especially in the market. And unfortunately, we've all been in this world long enough to see it happen more often than not, unfortunately.
Yeah, with my clients in secondary, I remember I was trying to sell an artist from Germany, and I called one of my clients in New York. I think we wanted $26,000 for the canvas, and he taught me a lesson that day. He said to me, how do you possibly substantiate that price for this guy? I've never heard of him. Can you show me any auction records? Can you show me anything that would make me want to spend more money on that artist? And I couldn't. But I think a really important thing, I think if I was talking to an artist myself, I would really want to encourage them in their mental state and their ability to be positive with themselves going forward, because the mindset that they're in as they're creating, if it's in a good place, can only go up, right? So it's sometimes it waxes and it wanes, and the market may change, but I think that it's more of that emotional connection. And as collectors, if we can encourage an artist to keep going And oh my God, and if you see something positive, encourage them, call them, text them, because the work will only get better if you're able to do that with the people that you're speaking to. It changes a lot.
I love that point because you talk about how the artist's mental state is
Yeah.
important and encouraging them, because I think that's part of being in this art world, whether you call yourself it doesn't matter what you call yourself, you know. It's encouraging artists, you know, and letting them know that they're valued, that you see them, that you appreciate their work. You know, I think sometimes people are afraid to engage with artists because they're like, I can't buy their work, you know. It's like, it's not about that, you know, just let them know what you think about the work. It's like, I don't care what you do for a living, we all just want to be seen and heard and valued, right? So I think
the
it's
value
really
is
important.
really important. It's like,
Yeah,
what
it's
is the
really
value?
important.
It's the value that people feel about themselves.
Yeah.
I want to like applaud like the three of you, because tied to this conversation about recognizing artists, the three of you have a philanthropic presence. And I think it's important to bring that up because you support the artists, but you also support organizations that provide artists with something that maybe as a collector you can provide, maybe as a, you know, an art advisor you want, but you become a philanthropist and then you're covering these other areas. Like you are super philanthropic, like I've seen it, and you really put your mouth where your money and all that. And you too. I mean, come on, the three of you. I need to recognize it because it is important to support nonprofits. You run your own nonprofit. You're a part of her member. You too. So it's
Dahlia's our newest member.
yeah. It's important, you know, how, like, I would like you to share a little bit if possible of your voice from that side.
I mean, you know, we started very early on when we started, like I said, being on at that time South Florida Art Center's board. But I do think it's so important. I mean, you know, Dan and I started Fountainhead in 2008. It's something that we funded for the first nearly 10 years. And I can remember there being times when we talked to the kids, because you know, our kids know no other life. You know, they grew up with artists for every occasion. You know, like, and you know, it was a little tough at times, and talking about, you know, so if you didn't get to have presence anymore, but you could still have artists around the dinner table, which would you choose? And like without even thinking, they were like, obviously the artists. And so I think it's, everybody finds their thing and their way of supporting, because being philanthropic isn't just about money. It's about love, attention, time, effort, connections. Like, you know, everybody can be philanthropic, and I think it's now more than ever, philanthropy is very important. And connecting people is supporting one another, just being there for one another is so valuable.
I mean, if you think about the root of the word, right? Philo means friend in Greek. You know, it's being a friend to the people around you. And one thing I really wanted to hit home was, it's when you support these different factions of the art world, there's a great saying, it's, you know, the rising tide lifts all boats, right? And so we're all here together, and just being everyone in this room tonight, we're all kind of raising the tide, right? So the boats can float better and kind of go out and sail. And I think it's such an honor to be able to do that. And I'm so happy that I'm able to do it in this neighborhood with, you know, you and so many of the other people tonight in this audience that I really appreciate as well.
Well, I also think that when you support institutions, you have a sense of ownership. And, you know,
Responsibility.
and ownership and responsibility, but, you know, private sector, in my opinion, is the only reliable force that we have. I mean, if we think that the only way that we can fund the things that we want is waiting for government to provide for us, and this is not a political statement, this is just what I believe. I believe that many hands make small work. And so if we can gather money together collectively as individuals, not only do we create a sense of ownership, which gives us a sense of fulfillment when we walk in the door. Because I mean, when people give money to institutions, and I'm one of them, the first thing you do is go look for your name. It's not necessarily an ego thing, it's a satisfaction thing. Like, I have a piece of the rock in this, and I'm engaged in this. So I think philanthropy moves mountains.
What organizations do you guys support here in Miami? You are IWC?
Well, I'm on the steering committee of IWC, which is the International Women's Committee at the PAMS. And I support them, and I support the BAS, and I support the ICA.
And you are in the board of Dimensions Variable.
Dimensions Variable, and other Jewish Federation for many years. And so just trying to give what I can. You know, someone once said, give till it hurts, and then someone else said, well, give until it feels good. So, you know, I remember I was soliciting someone for money, and I said to her, will you be joining me again this year? And she said, well, I don't know, I need to talk to my husband. And I said, oh, really? Did you talk to your husband when you bought that Nancy Gonzalez handbag? Anybody knows what a Nancy Gonzalez handbag is. It was alligator, okay, so figured out. Just, hey, wait a minute, that's not fair. I couldn't help myself. I should have not said anything. They was staring me in the face. I think so. I mean, I don't think she talked to me for a while.
It's a soft approach.
Yes.
And I mean, to what you just shared and using philanthropic as not just money, it's putting a lot of your time. Exactly. Like I've seen you, the three of you put so much of your time and your effort. And I think sometimes it's something that doesn't transpire to the public eye, you know? But you do a lot of that. And I think I would like to use this moment to recognize it, you know, beyond any particular institution. But I know that you do, and I know that you care. So thank you for that. I want to see, like, where am I in time? Like, do I need to go to Q&A or can I?
Q&A.
Okay, so let's move to Q&A. I would like to invite the audience, hola, Monica, to share any questions or comments you might have. Like, this is a great opportunity.
Hi, amazing talk. Tanya and I are coming from Mexico City. We are gallerists. We are always
What's
speaking
the name of your gallery?
Avant.dev. Yeah. And we are always speaking about how to nurture new collectors. We have been developing a lot of research in trying to find the right persona, and we are like approaching people on their forum. So our question maybe could be, have you ever thinking in how to capture the needs of young collectors, since they are more into algorithmic decisions, matchmaking, they are more focused on how to find the scarcity between all the nodes. And that's it because we found a niche in the tech and entrepreneur sector in terms of collection. So we want to hear your thoughts.
I can speak a little bit about that. I know Francesca's still here, but Francesca launched as part of Fountainhead a young contemporary group, which is people under 35. And we didn't call it a young collectors group because I think that not everybody the age, you know, that young is actually, there's Francesca, actually knows if they want to collect or not yet. I mean, a lot of times they just want to learn. They're like, if you haven't been exposed to art your entire life, like you have no idea, I know. So it was important for us to collect, to keep the access to that low. And really, it's just taking younger people through different experiences within the arts, not only in artist studios and galleries, but to talks. Hold on. So I think but what I want to say regarding AI, algorithmic, and all of that, it still comes down to people.
Yeah, it's a people
It
thing.
still comes down to people. Like, you have to engage them in a way that is personal. You need to bring them in. I mean, that's really probably the thing that's most important about the contemporaries in the Fountainhead in general, is that it's personal. And art is personal. And frankly, every aspect of life is personal.
I think right now what's happening with the younger crowd is the public sentiment is so important, right? It's interesting that you say this young art collectors group, okay, now I'm part of the group, right? We're just art collectors in general, now part of this group, we're part of that group. So that's a smart idea if you sort of just break it up into bite-sized pieces for people where they feel connected to those words that you're choosing, and then create opportunities. You know, if they're going to be curious, and some people it's intimidating to buy art. So maybe just create things going on at your gallery. It could be, you know, just twice a month, 3 times a month, these open houses that really push home the social media. Because I think one of the best things I learned from Dahlia in the past month was that she was so good at the follow-through. Did you guys all see all that follow-through and she was making reels, and she was making posts, and she was doing stories, and I'm like, whoa, this is good, you know? But that, if I were you and I wanted to attract a new kind of crowd, I would adopt something from what Dahlia did, because I think it's really, really smart. And we were talking the other day, I came up with this idea on the phone, where I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna put on my, I've never done this, on my WhatsApp story, a link to this. And I have to tell you what happened. I had one client in Italy, I haven't spoken to in a year, write me about a painting that he wanted me to sell last year, okay? That he wanted too much money for, and I told him so. And then now he's like, please come and sell it again. And then I had a client give me like 8 pieces of work to sell. And I know that if it wasn't for that one thing that I did, that one thing, I wouldn't have gotten that response overnight. So that would be my suggestion to you, is just hammer it home. Put it into, okay, we're gonna do the, you know, the single night, we're gonna do the under 35 crowd, we're gonna come up with opportunities for the artists themselves, and if you can match the art to that group, perfect.
And I'd also say, don't make it all about you.
No.
Like, you know, like, give them other experiences throughout the community, like engage them in a multitude of ways, right? But really, it's about engagement and authentic engagement.
I mean, I would say, how long have you had your gallery?
5 years.
5 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
We are surviving.
I think it's also about building relationships, and, you know, if you know, some people come into the business and they've already got a lot of connections, and so they're happily there. But for me, I've been doing it 16 years, and one of the things that I recognized early when I started was that you need to get people to trust you. That's number one. You have to build a reputation of trustworthiness to get people to come in and to feel that they can spend money. So know what it is that you are, and you can change and grow and evolve and get better or more interesting or whatever, but really, like, have a vision for what you're passionate about, and just keep hammering on that.
Yeah, because if you're not feeling it, no one else will either. You know, you have to just try to be as authentic as you possibly can.
Right, be that go-to place for leather jackets with stuff.
And fringe.
And consistent, right?
Thank you. I have a question. I'm curious about how important it is from a gallery and collector sort of standpoint of how important it is and how you identify the longevity of an artist.
Is it like a series of things that they've done in their CV? Is it something in their character that you can identify? Does it not matter at all? Perhaps you like the work and that's it. But that's something I've been thinking about, so I want to get your take on it.
I think that when you make a commitment to work with an artist, that's a commitment. It's a relationship. And so you're kind of, what was that movie Avatar when they pair bonded with their human? You are inextricably tied to one another, which means that you have to believe in longevity. Now, sometimes relationships change and people go in different directions, but in the beginning, in the most idealistic sense, you are saying, I'm going to work with you, I'm going to be your daycare center, I'm going to take the calls if you're interested in your work 24/7, I'm going to respond to them, I'm going to be responsible for protecting your work while it's in my care, I'm going to promise you that you're going to have a schedule of exhibitions, I'm going to promise you that I'm always going to show you. And that is just an intuitive thing. And hopefully, through your diligence, you will provide that long game for them. But it's hard to know. I don't think anybody can ever really know.
I think you can tell when somebody's really genuine with their work. Like they're not copycatting other people. Like they're amazing. Like I don't know if you would know her, and it's awesome. But she's a thinker, and she leads people to make their own conclusions about what she may be performing, what she may be showing. But it's unmistakably hers. And if people have that sort of resolve in their work, I think that's a really good tell to how far they can go. Is, how much of them is there, as opposed to just, okay, I'm going to paint interior things now because that's what's hot.
I think that goes back to commitment. You talked about commitment from a gallery's perspective. I would talk about commitment from an artist's perspective,
Yeah.
right? The artists that I know that are successful are artists. Like they're through and through. Doesn't mean that they don't have a job during the day that helps them be the artists that they are, but they are artists through and through. And I think, I personally like when artists are researched and they kind of know where their work is coming from and they can talk about what inspired them. Or I love hearing about what artists are reading, what artists are listening to, other artists that they're looking at. I like artists that have a tremendous amount of intellect going into their work, even if the work itself might look naive in its making, right? There's something to it, that there's a real commitment from their life to being an artist. I think that's really an important part for me. There has to be depth to the work and authenticity to the work. That's purely you. What you have?
I want to add something, and then we go to the question. When you're part of this ecosystem, you're going to start growing with it, and then there's things that you can identify. Like things start becoming so familiar to you, and you see the new people coming, whether they're collectors, institutions, whatever it is. So once you get involved, you just see that change. Like I came from Mexico City, and now Miami is so familiar to me and the people and you guys. So,
but there are certain artists that you get very drawn to, right? Over the years, like there's one right now for me. Her name is Suzanne Zagorny, and she's in Germany, and I don't know why. It's not like we are long lost sisters or cousins, or I met her any other way. I just met her, and I just thought her work was so outstanding and amazing. I brought a couple of crates to the United States, and I just started placing them in really good collections. And to me, it's a very slow game, but it's so important to me that she gets in the right homes. And that sort of dedication on her part and mine, I love that energy. And you do that all the time. This is something I don't do, So it was such a beautiful experience. But you must get that all the time. And you too, I mean, you bring people from everywhere, right?
Well, I would say, circling back to a couple of comments ago about like nurturing collectors and bringing collectors along. We had a situation today where Gwen was there, my good friend Gwen. There's John. Hi, John. And it was easy. I bought Gwen some barbecue for lunch, and she bought a piece of art. I was like, spend $20, have some art. Write that one down. Yeah. It was a new place called Slab Daddy, right on like 7th and 20th. Really good. But this group of people came in, and I was talking with Gwen at my desk, and I go, hold on, I gotta go, she's got an Hermes bag. So you just kind of go, it's just like you look for little clues. She's laughing, you know what I mean. So I go out there and I'm, talking, and, Sophia's very good. She's got the laptop open, we're working on stuff, and the lady goes, well, I'm looking for some things for my shelves. I'm like, well, great. Come on back. I got tons of stuff for your shelves. She shows me a picture, and she's got a lime green sectional, lime green, and a table that's like lime green and blue. And she's like, well, I kind of want to match these colors, and I've got something like this on this wall. And I'm like, this isn't going to work. I've got nothing. I mean, and sometimes you realize, and you do your best, right? But I always feel like if I have to sell you, I know this sounds strange because I'm in the business of selling stuff, but if I have to sell you art, it's not working. It's not about sales. It's about adaptation. It's about me being able to say to you, especially a new collector, who it's like I see the face of vacancy when they walk in. I'm like, you got a lot of white walls, don't you? I don't know where to begin. And I can say to them with complete confidence, if you put this on your wall, I guarantee you that's all you're going to be looking at as soon as you come in the door. This is going to transform your home. That's what I know. I know that is the case. But it's very hard because people always want to talk themselves out of a purchase. It's like you don't even need to be standing there. You could go and brush your teeth or take a call, and they're standing there talking themselves out of a purchase. And that's not going to work. And you have to recognize that you are, I'm just saying it, and other dealers would agree with me. You just got to get to a point where it's like, I'm just going to walk away from this, because if I've got a bag and I've got a cow towel and I've got to tap dance and do everything under the sun just to get you to want something, while you're standing there talking yourself out of it, it's not working. So you kind of have to manage that situation. You do. It's not giving up, it's a recognizing it's just not going to work. Do you agree, Dina? Have you been in that situation? Nothing like being in an art fair booth and being the last day, and it is really sucking. And you're like, I just watched tickets to see Glenn Ross. Does anybody know that story? It's the ultimate desperation sales movie. It's like you just want to go out and kill yourself. Yeah, right. Well, it's on Broadway, and Bill Burr is in it, and Karen Culkin. I had to go see it. But it's like, you didn't start smoking until you started in that booth on the last day of the fair. All of a sudden,
Because everybody wants 75% off.
yeah, you're dying. And you've got to get through it and know that the art will go where it needs to be, and you're not going to have to sell it so hard to make it work. Yeah.
Well, I feel like it's Erin.
Yeah, sorry, Erin.
Hi. I'm kind of, do you guys think about, like, as collectors, what's the one that got away that haunts you?
Oh, I think we probably have many.
What's that one?
I have a Fountainhead one.
Oh, do you? Well, actually, I have one that then I wanted that we went to the back room during our puzzle, like we just didn't pull the trigger, and it's now hanging at the Rebel Museum. And we're like, every time I go there and take the artist, and I'm like, damn.
Victor, we didn't go that month. It was how many years ago, and Victor was like, oh, I really like this artist, and she's going to be at the Fountainhead. We didn't go that month. It was Christina Coral. And every time we see Christina Coral, I just sort of go like this to Victor. Because, you know, like I said, he's my guy, but wow, like that was one that to this day we're like, oh. But you know, you guys, you just don't know.
And there's always great art,
Right?
Like, you know,
and it's like I said, that little
like-
$20 piece is one of the most important pieces in our whole collection. So who cares? You know, like there's always more.
Never. It's like everything in life. You know, don't look back.
Yeah.
Just look forward. You know.
Well, when I had my gallery in St. Pete, and I showed it at the parish, I had a show with an artist named Lynette Larson, who I'm very sorry I didn't get one of her works back in the day. Fantastic artist, now probably approaching 80, but just real, I don't know, do you know Lynette's work? I think I know she shows with James Cohan, and I'm not sure who else, but really interesting work, so that one I feel bad, but
But also, there's just sometimes a matter of means. I mean, I don't know. Spending those days, like timing, college tuition. I don't know. You know,
You're
life.
meant to have what you have.
Yeah, exactly.
You just are.
I just would like to circle back to the question to the artist in the back regarding longevity. And could you speak to patience and the ebbs and flows of an artist's career? Because I just purchased a work of an artist that's 92. And then someone that is in their late 20s. The artist that's 92 has had various ebbs and flow in their career, but is still
We'll just learn those lessons.
And so it's really, I think, you know, for the artists in the room, given all of your collective experience, I think it would be really very helpful if you can speak to kind of the arc of one's career, the ebbs and the flows, and how you sustain yourself during that, because that's the reality of being an artist.
Yeah. Well, I think every artist's career has ebb and flow. I don't know any artist that has just gone like this. Like it just doesn't happen. I don't know many careers.
But that's
that
the
are like
perception.
that. But that is a perception.
That's
The
a
perception
perception.
is, you know, the artist, you know, shut up overnight. But the reality is they've been at it for 5 or 10 years. You know what it looks like on the
For
outside.
50 years.
Rarely, or 50 years. Rarely is what's going on the inside. I think it's consistency. I think there are always going to be new artists coming out of art schools, or new things that are hot in the market, or new regions that people are now paying attention to, or a new medium that people are now paying attention to. And because of that, you know, careers ebb and flow, and also a person's life ebb and flows, right? Like you're on it, you're able to like commit 100% of your time to it, and then maybe you have a child, or maybe you hurt your foot, or lost someone important to you, or I don't know, like it's life, you know. And I think the thing is, if you are committed, and like this is you want to be an artist, then you're committed, and you have to deal with those ebbs and flows. And I think one of the most important things I can say, something that Dan and I talk about, we've talked about, actually we've all talked about at some point in time in life, is like when you have success, save, treat yourself to something small, but don't go out and buy a Cadillac or whatever. Prepare, because it's just not generally going to happen that things are going to continue at the same rate, because also the market changes, as we're all seeing now, that's totally out of your control. So just prepare,
How many times do you think people go through that, oh my gosh, it's so slow, it's so terrible. And I think we've all experienced this at some point in our lives, where the phone rings and it changes your whole life, right? Like, whoa, I'm back, right? All it takes is that one phone call. So I would just say, put one foot in front of the other and walk. You're on let's say you're on that first, line, and you want to get to the end of the football field, right? Just put one foot in front of the other and just keep keep going, because we all know from time to time it's great, and when it's not, work.
Exactly.
I think that right now, and maybe it's my evolving maturity, but artists that are, you know, how do I say, 60 and up, and in particular the 92-year-old, that becomes very interesting to me, because I think that life experience and time making work has real value. And you know, the important part is the strategy of what happens with that artist's work. I think one thing that can really sabotage an artist, and I understand that not every artist has gallery representation. I understand that. Well, one of the things that I have seen sabotage careers of artists is selling out of the studio and, you know, selling in desperation. And then you see this artwork showing up at auction, just, you know, pennies on the dollar. And they may have had those moments and may be in museum collections, but just selling out of the studio. If you do have a gallery, again, I am a gallerist, but this is not about what happens to me, it's about what I've seen happen to artists when they don't have the patience to work with the gallery, or when they think they can get another 20% and they sell out of the gallery, and then the gallery finds out about it, and ultimately they lose that representation. And there is no one, there's no go-to, there's no one to safeguard the legacy, there's no one to call or to find out about a market. And it also, I mean, you can try to, you know, and it gets very frustrating too, if, you know, you're trying to establish a price point, as we talked about before, you're trying to establish a price point for an artist, and then you find out that, you know, they had a fire sale in the studio, and people were coming in buying whatever they, you know, for whatever they wanted, and you feel like a fraud, because you were trying to do what the artist wanted you to do, or what the family wanted you to do, and then everything just kind of falls out from under it. So the challenge is who's minding the store, who's protecting that work, and that older, more mature artist is someone to kind of watch out for and make sure that there's a place where to go. There's right now.
Well, this person is represented by David Swerter. So
Okay,
this
they're
person's
good
a-
shape.
Yeah, they're good.
Well,
shape.
there's a gallery in New York, speaking of women, called Barry Campbell. They've been
Yes.
around for a while now, and I've been kind of like watching them, and they have really gotten behind FX women artists. Like that, talk about the leather jacket with studs. That's what they're doing. That is all that they've been doing. And they're succeeding in representing that work and pushing the prices and protecting the estates and the legacy.
I have a question about pricing as a new collector, and you basically saw an artist in your art fair or in the gallery and you really like it, and you asked to come to the studio to visit the artist, and what do you expect when you actually come directly to the studio? You don't work for the gallery. Do you expect an artist to give you like maybe discount like the one that they will get, you know, like if you're selling directly to the gallery? Do you expect that they give you like 50% of the gallery price when they come to your studio, or do you expect any kind of like discount? But when as a collector, when you go and you want to buy directly to the artist, do you feel like you need to go there because you want to actually get a better discount, or like you don't want to go to the
Well, why
gallery?
do you think?
So
You just answered your own question.
Did everyone hear the question?
No.
The question was, when you go to the artist directly, is because you want like a big discount?
I mean, like, do you expect the artist?
Do you
to give
expect
you,
the artist to just sell
like to
his
because
price,
you go directly
their
to
price?
you feel like as a collector, you expect them to give you the same price as the gallery, or actually
Well,
discount?
can we go back to the first part of what you said, which I think what you said was, well, what see some art that you like in the art fair, and then you go directly to the artist. Well, I mean, from my vantage point, that's a complete no-no.
I know. I mean, if somebody saw the piece in your gallery and comes to me and says, "Oh, I want to buy it,"
You're the artist.
yeah,
is not, okay.
I will say no. I'm sorry, because I feel like for me, it's like kind of like squeezing the gallery and being willing to cut corner. I don't want to do that, so I never sell. If somebody saw my work somewhere and wants to come behind the back and buy it directly from me, I will sell it. I say, no, you have to go to the gallery. But sometimes if somebody saw you like on Instagram and wants to like come and buy it, and I always give them the price that is in the gallery.
Right.
But I always get the feeling that some collectors are like pushing to get like a discount because they say, oh, you don't have to pay this gallery commission, so you should give me a discount. I get this a lot. So I was wondering, how do you answer that? How do you respond to that? How do you think it's like no?
Well, I think you can just say no. Just say no. I can say no. But I think if you have a gallery, you should direct them to the gallery. Now, if the person decides that they don't want to buy from the gallery, what can you do? But if they saw your work through the gallery, listen, a gallerist can always negotiate with an artist. Some artists may say, listen, I mean, again, I'm more of a pushover than most. But some artists may call you on the phone and say, listen, this collector came directly to me. What do you think is a fair price? Well, that's kind of a stupid question to answer because they're never going to agree with your fair price. So what you say is, what do you think is a fair price? And then they will tell you, and you can decide if you think that that's acceptable or not. But that's a way where a deal can take place where you can hopefully keep that collector engaged and still be paying honor to the gallery in some way. So I think that you should have a conversation with the gallery and see how they respond to it as each situation occurs. But the worst thing you can do, never mind the gallery, the worst thing that you can do for yourself professionally is sell for 50% off. You've just screwed yourself completely because you're not going to be able to go back.
And those are going to be the same people that are going to put your stuff at auction and flip it. It's just the mentality that goes along with it. So by all means, just direct them. If you work with a gallery, direct them to the gallery. I mean, there's many reasons, different personalities. Certain people just go in because they like the experience of seeing the art. Yeah, that's what I like to do.
It could just be that they want to do a studio visit.
Yeah,
to meet
I like that. I like it.
it.
Yeah, but I think if you have someone that you get the feeling that that's where they're heading, it's almost disrespectful on multi levels. And I would just very politely point out, oh, I'd love to talk to you about it, but I don't deal with the money aspects of this. I'm the creator. I'm the person that creates, but you can, of course, speak to my gallerist.
But I do think, one, that not every collector that's going to reach out to you is interested in a discount. They really might just want to come to the studio and get to know you. But yeah, I'm not going to beat on the same drum. Don't do that. It's not good. It's not good for you. It's not good for anyone. And like you said, I don't think the intentions there are good long term.
But that being said, if you don't have a gallery,
Right.
if you don't have a gallery and you want to sell your art, you should still not sell at a 50% discount unless, God forbid, you are desperate for the money. I mean, there's always situations, you have to eat, you've got to feed yourself. But it's not good for an artist to become, pardon my French, a little, art bitch, where all of a sudden, every, woman that wants to host a wine tasting is using your gallery as a backdrop. And, oh, you got to see my artist friend. You don't want to be that person. You want to protect yourself and you want to have boundaries.
There was someone here.
Hi. I'm curious as to how you decide which mills you want to open and how you decide what invitations you want to accept to exhibitions that are maybe by galleries that are like primarily online or nomadic, as I currently have one that's really fresh, and I'm just kind of trying to figure out how to navigate inviting people that I think would appreciate these artists without oversaturating and blowing up the emails of collectors or people that I think could be potentially collectors. So yeah, I'm just curious as to what factors into you kind of trusting a new invitation to see art.
I would say do what you're doing right now and show up. Okay. Show up wherever you go. If there's something going on, you are interested, show up. Because if you send me an email today, if I don't know who you are, I don't know if I would open it to be honest. Maybe I would. Oh, that sounds nice. But if you get 100 of those a day, but hey, I met you tonight. So next time I see an email from you, I'm like, oh, it's a nice girl from the talk that night. I think showing up is 80% of success in any business.
It's true for galleries, it's
Familiarity.
true for artists, it's true for everything. I mean, showing up is so important. I mean, that's why we're here with Dottie, because she's kept showing up. but it's really true. I mean, like it's sincerely true, and that's true. It's true. Like it's true about marketing any product. Like you've got to see it. I think that this is you have to see it 7 times before it even really registers in there. So it gets back to it also gets back to it's personal, right? Life is personal. Art is personal. When you show up and you meet people, it becomes personal.
So have you opened a gallery?
It is nomadic, so I'll do temporary exhibitions.
Okay, and you're based in Miami?
Yes.
Well, congratulations. I mean, I try to go to a lot of exhibitions. What gets me, I'm like a picture book person, I like to skip to pictures. So I think having pictures, having images in your email is a grabber. Not a lot of words.
Yeah, don't expect people to read.
Yeah, don't do like a whole art speak digressive,
And don't do it like gray.
Yeah, but pictures are very good, and again, creating a distinct as you can be, a brand that is reflective of what you're about, what your vision is, and be repetitive with it. And I think a good Instagram presence is critical, and be mindful of it and post daily and be consistent in that. But lots of images, lots of pictures, and make sure they're as best as you can, quality-wise.
And tag as many people as you possibly can in stories, and this way that you're sort of multiplying your visibility out there.
People that you know.
Yes. No, I don't know.
No, but I actually think that's important to say.
Yeah, people in the
I've
pictures.
been tagged in a lot of things that
Yeah,
I
me
don't
too.
know what's going on. So, it's
So true.
Let's do one more. Yes.
Yes. I have a question just with Kathryn was talking about the old work, when artists hide the old work. I think we all do that, I think. But me personally, when I see other artist studios, I'm always curious to see their early work. And I always love their early work. I don't know if it's the fact that it's hidden, that you value it more psychologically, or it's that it's really good art and you've never seen it before and then you're surprised. And I really don't know what's the psychological part of it.
Well, you want to see
But-
evolution.
Yeah, the evolution.